So we publish audit reports every year. And we publish audit reports because we have a mandate to promote transparency and accountability in the management of. We publish these reports because we have a mandate to promote transparency and accountability in the management of resources from oil, gas, and mining. We do this every year. So the report I'm going to present to you now is the report for 2013. And because we are very busy, I will just rush through the highlights. So I have 10 major points from the oil and gas audit and a few points on the solid minerals audit. The first highlight of the oil and gas audit is that in 2013, the country produced 800.3 million barrels in 2013. Out of that, the country made $58.07 billion. And that represents an 8% reduction on the $62.9 billion that the country made in 2012. The second issue is there are some monies that were withheld or lost or underpaid for different reasons. These monies are in 3 tranches. The first one is in the category of the unremitted. And the unremitted amounted to $3.8 billion and 358 billion naira. The second category is the category of the losses. These were money lost because of some inefficient practices and because of theft and other things. So the country lost $5.9 billion and 20 billion naira. Under the category of the underassessed, the country lost $599.8 billion. No, $599.8 million. So let me go through the quick components of the different categories. When we look at the unremitted, $1.7 billion is still being owed to the Federation for 8 OMLs from the Shell JV. I will come back to that. Also, $1.29 billion from the NLNG dividends. I will also come back to that. And 351 billion naira from unpaid domestic crude debt. 3.98 billion naira from subsidy over recovery from 2012. And 2.17 billion from cash call refunds. So those are the money that we have established that should have been paid to the Federation, and they were not paid to the Federation. The second category is the category of losses by NNPC and its subsidiaries. The second category is the category of losses. And here we had, out of the $5.9 billion that we lost, $4.7 billion was lost to theft and vandalism. 20 billion naira was lost because NNPC did not observe the 90-day credit grace. And when you look at the time value of money, and if you calculate it at 12% interest, the country lost 20 billion naira because of that. So let me now go into some of the issues in this report. The first one is about the assets divested by NNPC to MPDC. NNPC between 2010 and 2011 divested 8 assets that belonged to the Federation to its upstream subsidiary, MPDC. So NNPC divested 55% of the shares being held on behalf of the Federation to MPDC. These are OMLs 4, 26, 30, 34, 38, 40, 41, and 42. These 8 OMLs were valued at $1.8 billion by DPR. But according to PwC, in the report they submitted in 2015, these assets should have been valued at $3.4 billion. Given that Shell, that also divested 45% of its own interest in those OMLs, got $2.72 billion for his own 45% interest. So Shell actually got more than about $1 billion higher than what we got for our own 55%, or what was valued for our own 55%. So what this means is that if you look at the disparity between $3.4 billion that should have been the commercial value of those assets and the $1.8 billion that DPR valued those assets, you can say that those assets were valued at 47% discount or loss. But the story doesn't end there. Even with the discount and the loss, MPDC paid only $100 million out of the $1.8 billion, meaning there's an outstanding of $1.7 billion. And even that $100 million was paid 2 years after. This means that MPDC paid only 5.6% of the discounted value. The $100 million that they paid amounts to 5.6% of the $1.8 billion. That was the discounted value. And another way of looking at it is that they actually paid 3% of the actual value, of the commercial value of those assets. Yet, MPDC, without paying up to 10% of the valuation of the assets, bear in mind, please, that that valuation is also discounted or at a loss. MPDC enjoys the full benefits from those assets. So what this means is that NNPC lifted oil on behalf of MPDC, not on behalf of the Federation, despite that MPDC had not fully paid for those assets. Another set of assets, 4 assets in the Ajib JV, were also divested to MPDC by NNPC. These are OMLs 60, 61, 62, and 63. For this set of assets, there was no valuation done at all for those assets, and no consideration has been paid on those assets. At the time that the audit closed, MPDC has not paid any money on those 4 assets, and they continue to enjoy all the benefits from those assets, meaning all was lifted on behalf of MPDC and not on behalf of the Federation. As if this was not bad enough, cash calls were paid on some of these assets. And if I can step back a little bit here, it's like if I enter into a joint venture with somebody, we're running a car business together. We contribute money, and the person runs the business. I contribute my own share, the person contributes their own share. And at some point, I say, okay, you know what? I want to sell my share to somebody else. And I collect only 5% of the value, the discounted value of that car. And at the same time, I continue to give the person money to run the car, whereas the person continues to enjoy the full benefit of having those assets. So despite that, the 12 OMLs in the Shell and Ajib JV were divested to MPDC and were not fully paid for, or were not paid for at all, NAPIMS paid cash call on some of these OMLs. At some point, $358.9 million was paid as cash call on 4 OMLs from the Ajib JV. At some point, it was realized that a mistake was made, that cash calls shouldn't have been paid on those assets. And a refund of $354 million was paid to NAPIMS, and NAPIMS sat on it. The refund was not remitted to the Federation account. There's an outstanding of $147 million not paid at all, and the refund that was paid was not transferred to the Federation account. NAPIMS also paid some cash calls, on some divested OML from the Shell JV. At some point, $35.12 million was refunded to NAPIMS, and like the other one, NAPIMS collected the money. The refund was not paid to the Federation account. Also, NAPIMS records show that refund for $414,000 and 249 million naira was paid on OML, was requested. A request for refund on OML 25 was made for $414,000 and 249 million naira. Also, NAPIMS records show that there was a request for repayment of $2.17 billion on OML 42. As at the time the audit closed, these requests had not been granted.